She had phenomenally tough words about it, and she recognized it for what it was, which was if this was allowed, then anyone's home could be taken and given to a developer. Any farm could be taken and given for a factory. Any business for a shopping center. I mean, there was no limit to what could be done in the name of eminent domain if all they were saying is what we're doing might increase the tax base. And sure enough, that's what it began playing out.
And for people who think this is over there, that's going to happen to somebody else. Yeah, that's fine, but I live in a nice little neighborhood. I got covenants, I got a cul-de-sac, we're fine. Look no farther than here in Denver with the Regional Transportation District, who are starting to take property, and some property being used for condominiums above their park and rides as they're building out their light rail expansion. And we found out there's another 50 or so just a few weeks back in the paper as they're going out to DIA. They want even more properties. This can be your home, this could be your business. They can take it, not just use it for a public use, but take it and give it to a company who might give more taxes.
That's right. And it's really important to realize who just might give more taxes. There never has to be any definite proof that they did. It's just the allegation, the promise that they will.
To be fair, Suzette Kigelo needs to be compensated her fair market value for that, correct?
Well, yes, the term is fair market value. Now, of course, that doesn't take into account the love and hope and effort that she put into that home, the fact that there's nowhere else in New London remotely like that. She can't find any place to live like that, but there is compensation. But, you know, one of the plaintiffs in our case, one of the homeowners there, when he would bring media around, he'd say, yes, they've offered me money, but let me show you something. And he'd take him over to the door jamb into the kitchen. And there on the door jamb was the little marks where their son had measured his height until he'd left to go into the Army. He says, how much is that worth? How much are the memories that are tied in this house that are reflected in that door jamb? How much is that worth? There's no amount of money I'm willing to take for that.
All right, let me play devil's advocate on this last, and then we'll move on to a couple other cases as well. All right, let me play developer for a second. I bought up a whole square block. I'm going to put in a terrific shopping center. It's going to have all that new urbanism that we like. It's going to have an eatery here and a nice little river walk over there. We'll be able to work well with the city. The transit agency is going to love it. We're going to do this. And we've got an anchor store that's going to come in where it's going to be mixed use residential. Oh my God, it's going to be good. And I'm not asking for anything for you. All I want is to be able to put it here. And I've got every single property except one little old lady with one little pink house, with one nice little door jamb with the markings of her kids as they got older. You're telling me I can't do my deal?
I'm telling you.
I've got so much to offer the whole community. I'm going to put this jewel in the center of the community. I'm going to make money for the kids in taxes. It's going to help the disabled. It's going to help the schools. And one little stuck-up woman is going to say, no, I'm not selling, and the whole deal goes down. Shouldn't government step in and say, listen, you're stopping something here that's going to move forward the whole city, and that public use for the whole city is going to be wonderful?
No, it should not
Why?
go forward. Development happens all the time in this country without eminent domain, and it happens very successfully. And it has for ever since the country was started. So the notion that eminent domain is somehow suddenly essential all over the place is just not true. And in fact is more a reflection of the cottage industry of developers and consultants and tax-hungry politicians that are now arising around the country to try and exploit this.
Give me one more, and then I'll ask you a couple more questions. Give me one more from the dirty dozen of bad decisions from the Supreme Court.
Boy, think about the fact that in any time that you own a property, and you might find yourself suddenly having it taken from you, not because of eminent domain, but because it's somehow in a very attenuated way connected to a crime. Perhaps a crime that you didn't have anything to do with, that you didn't know about, that you didn't much less authorize, and yet somehow or another that property, because maybe you're a landlord, because maybe you own a car that you loaned to someone.
I rent out my basement to somebody. I didn't know he was doing drug deals down there.
There you go.
The cops come and seize the whole house.
That's
what was the story behind that?
That's possible under what's called asset forfeiture, civil asset forfeiture. And it's a doctrine that's been very popular with the rise on the war on drugs. And what it basically allows the police to do is to confiscate or seize on property that's then forfeited to the government whenever that property is connected in any way with a crime, regardless of the owner's connection to that. The case arose this way. A woman owned a car with her husband. They both owned the car. One night he decided on his own to take it out and engage the services of a prostitute.
Like everyone does.
And like every wife approves of, right?
Exactly.
Well, he did that. He got busted. because this was a car being used in the commission of a crime.
They took the car.
Took the car. She
And
had
now
she was completely innocent, had no knowledge,
But yet now she can't go to work.
she can't go to work. She
What was her
doesn't have
name?
a car. Her
What was
name.
the case?
Her name was. This was Bennis, the Bennis case.
Wow. So now, and it's perfectly legal then for the cops to come and confiscate property.
Not only legal, but the incentive structure is such that the police departments around this country profit from seized property. So it puts a real.
Because they can sell it.
They sell it, or they make use of it. Sometimes for cars or for whatever they make use of.
Nice deal. All right. We've only got a couple minutes left. You've got this terrific book, The Dirty Dozen. You go through what you think are the 12 worst Supreme Court decisions. Let me ask you the larger question. We give a lot of scrutiny to the president. I mean, we know when his dog comes, we'll know his name, we'll know everything about him. The Senate, the House, we've got watchdog groups all over trying to make sure if they get caught with their page, we know about it. We know every bill that goes through. Lots of transparency, lots of media scrutiny. When it comes to the courts, even here in Colorado, not the case. I would imagine most people know who the Speaker of the House is. Most people know who our president is. If they were asked to name a couple of justices, they couldn't. Here in Colorado, name the Chief Justice of the Colorado Supreme Court. Most people wouldn't know, but yet they wield equal power in our system. What does it take? Or let me ask you first, how dangerous is that, and how do you fix it?
Right now, when you hear the discussion about judicial nominations, it's always important to recognize that they do have this power, and any time a justice is nominated, whether it's for a state court or the U.S. Supreme Court, that the discussion of their nomination take place in the context of what's the proper role of the court, what is the philosophy that a justice is bringing? Do they believe that they are constrained in their authority and that they will look at the Constitution and see that the government just has enumerated powers? Or do they think that the Constitution is just a malleable document, something that they can change and interpret as they see fit for any circumstance?
But what judge, when getting nominated to a higher court, not just the highest court, but any higher court, when going through the confirmation says, I believe the Constitution's like putty and I can mold it any way I want? Nobody ever says that, do they?
Actually, they do. They just use a different term. They call it the living Constitution. And that is a term that you'll see in law schools throughout the country. You'll see Justice Breyer on the U.S. Supreme Court talks about it all the time. And that is the notion that it's a living, evolving document that's not rooted in history in a way that's grounded, but rather it's something that can be applied as the justices see fit.
What's the remedy? There are some people who say throughout courts we need to have term limits on judges, we need to have elected judges rather than nominated judges, we need to do something to get more scrutiny of judges. Is there some sort of political fix here?
There's not an immediate political fix, but in the meantime we can do a couple of things. We can call upon the court to do its duty and to engage in the proper role that it was intended to have, to look at the precedent that's on the book and where it's wrong, as in the Dirty Dozen, to begin overturning those cases.
How are they going to be overturned? The Commerce Clause decision was done, 80 years ago? And every bit of law since then that Congress has done is largely predicated on its right to be able to muck around in people's lives thanks to the Commerce Clause. You think that any court is really going to turn that around and then destroy the power of the federal government?
I think that is going to be an enormously difficult battle, but nothing short of that is going to make it really the constitutional government that we need, we deserve, and that we were intended to have.
Chip, as always, thanks for visiting Denver. It's always fun, and thanks for representing us in court. Appreciate
my pleasure.
it. Tell a friend about the Independence Institute. Check out our webpage at independenceinstitute.org. Check out the Institute of Justice at ij.org. Listen for me late nights on 850 KOA. If you're looking for a good podcast, it's ivoices.org. And send me some money. I could use some. We'll see you next week.
You jibber jab, bamboozle, nuka, noozle, bippity bop, she-gall. You jibber jab, bamboozle, nuka, noozle, bippity bop, she-gall. I mean, you keep on talking, but you don't know where to turn it off.